As a Halo fan, I feel I have an obligation to talk about this because, well, I love the Halo series, and to be truly honest, looking at Halo 5, I don't really like the direction the series has gone. While I don't mind the art style or the story, I do feel like 343 has approved upon what Bungie has done in terms of story in some aspects. But to a certain extent, with Halo 5 in particular, they have gone a few steps backwards because, well, they didn't bother improving upon it. They've had a story where, while there are returning characters, like especially with part of Master Chief's part of the story. Basically, while you don't really play as him often in that campaign, there are aspects where you do basically play as him with three other members that were basically quintessential to the Halo story, basically quintessential to Master Chief's past. While the most of it you play as Team Osiris with fuck, I forget his name. Basically, Team Locke. Yeah, Locke. That's the guy name. He plays Locke most of the game, and while the story's certain interesting, but before we talk about interesting it is the advertising overall kind of lied to us. Basically said hunt the truth, and it talked about how Master Chief killed civilians, but no, he never killed civilians, like at all. Like it's total fucking bullshit. Like before the game was even released, I remember watching that Hunt the Truth series, which was kind of interesting, where you listen to the story about Benjamin something something. It's like about a journalist going against Oni or something. And enough about that. Let's talk about Halo 5. Like the news story today is basically you look at the Halo 5 in particular, and you see that, well, Halo 5 has actually sold fewer consoles, Xbox consoles, than it did compared to when Halo 3 first released. While Halo 5 has actually increased the sale of Xbox consoles, don't get me wrong, but compared to what Halo 3 did, like it not only sold more Xbox 360 consoles, it more than doubled it tripled it. And it even like sold fewer consoles than Titanfall, which was a hyped FPS shooter that tried doing something different. While the gameplay was interesting, everything else was kind of half-assed. Even the multiplayer. While the story was half-assed, I was hoping they'd put a lot more effort into the multiplayer, but sadly they didn't. The multiplayer was missing many integral features that many shooters have, and sadly didn't. And off topic, but I'm not really surprised because overall, I do think the hype for Halo is died down. While I do have a soft spot for Halo in general, it's just I feel like it's kind of losing its heat. And while I do like how it tried doing something different, because I do feel eventually Halo would have to like change it up a bit, and 343 was to do that. But while they did change it up a bit from a gameplay standpoint, they just didn't really improve upon it from a story standpoint. I do feel this universe can tell a very good story. It's just they don't really bother, especially Bungie. Like they have the aspects, they have the music, they have the art style. They just don't bother telling an integral story. While with Call of Duty, the other FPS, you see how they tell their typical good guy versus bad guy story, where you're playing America, the good guy in particular, and then you see the bad guy who's most likely going to be European and always want to blow shit up, yada yada yada, typical terrorist plot, yada yada yada, whatever. But Halo does have a somewhat interesting universe, and I do think with that universe it's capable of telling interesting stories. And I do think when compared to Halo 5 in particular, I think Halo 4 is a good example of that. It did tell a very interesting story about a love story between a man and an AI. A man who is more machine while an AI has become more human. And the story here in Halo 5 is kind of pathetic. And especially with the ending, it ended on a fucking cliffhanger just like Halo 2, and it's just disappointing. Very disappointing. While you think 343 is improving upon it, they're kind of somewhat making the same mistakes as fucking like as Bungie. And before Halo 5 was even announced, like I believe one of them promised that Halo 5's story would even be even better. But no, it's just while returning characters do return, there are returning characters, but we don't really know about them. Like one of my favorite characters, while Halo 3 ODST, for example, while that game was overpriced at launch, it had a very good story. A very good story. Buck was one of the characters. He was an ODST, and he's a returning character in Halo 5, and he's actually a Spartan. Yet he's not given much ado. Like he's talking about how his life as an ODST, and Locke and Buck would just joke about who's buying first at the bar. Like we never heard lines like that in action movies or something. Ugh. And that fucking ending, man, is just, it's like they're not really trying with the story. Well, the multiplayer was kind of interesting, and then there's the fact that they removed split screen and their bullshit excuse for not having it. Just ugh. And then the requisition points, the fucking microtransactions. I mean, come the fuck on. I feel like the Halo series, and overall, and when you include the financial status of the series and the hype that's dying down, it's really reached a low point. I thought I reached a low point with Halo 4. While it did do, in my eyes, from a story standpoint, do very well, and while it did kind of copy and paste what Halo Reach did with Halo 4, it did include all the features, but Halo 5 is the worst of the series right now because they literally remove features, they half-ass the story, and including the microtransactions. It just shows that all Microsoft cares about is the mighty dollar. So yeah, really sad. It's really sad that Halo isn't going to do well. So I'm kind of worried how Halo 6 is going to do when it's released or something. And we'll probably have to wait 2 or 3 years for it to continue off after the cliffhanger. So yeah, I want you to tell me your thoughts in the comments. Whatever. My name is Trige, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.